You're welcome to this tutorial session, and our focus for today will be on how to solve a quadratic equation using factorization method. So there are different methods that can be used in solving quadratic equations. Some of the methods include factorization by completing the square method, using formula method, and you can also use graphical method to solve a quadratic equation. But our main focus at this moment will be on factorization. How can we solve a quadratic equation using factorization? So if you recall, in our last meeting, we defined factorization as the process of breaking down numbers, polynomials, or algebraic expression into a product of smaller numbers. We went ahead and took some examples on how we can factor out or factorize a given number or algebraic expressions. So our focus for the moment will be on how to solve a quadratic equation using factorization method. Of course, the steps and the procedures are quite simple. Once you understand the method of factorization, then it will be very simple for you to solve a quadratic equation problem using factorization. So let's take our first example as it regards to this. So we are supposing that we are asked to solve this expression. We have an expression x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. If you are asked to solve, basically the question is what is the value of x in this particular expression. So we want to use factorization method to get the values of x. So let's go ahead and solve it. So by factorization, we have to factor this out first. And how do we factor this particular expression? How can we factorize it? Recall in our previous class, we said that we can factor out this particular expression by first multiplying the constant term with the coefficient of x squared. And in this case, the coefficient of x squared in this case is 1 because it is not written there. So that means the coefficient of x squared is 1. So we are going to multiply 1 with the constant. And the constant here is 2 because 2 is not attached with any variable. It doesn't have x. So that makes it a constant. So our first step is to multiply the coefficient of x squared with 2. And in this case, the coefficient of x squared here is 1. So this is same times 1x. So we are going to multiply with 2. So 1 times 2 will give you 2. So you now write your new figure. We have x squared minus 3x then plus 2 is equal to 0. So the next thing you have to do now is to find the two numbers that if you add them, it will give you the middle term. It will give you minus 3x. And if you multiply them, it will give you 2. So two numbers that if you add them, it will give you the middle term, which is 3x. Then when you multiply them, it will give you the constant term, which is 2. So the two numbers are minus 1 and minus 2. The two numbers are minus 1 and minus 2. This is true because if you add minus 1 minus 2, it will give you minus 3. And if you multiply minus 1 times minus 2, it will give you plus 2. So you can confirm it on your calculator. Minus 1 plus minus 2, it will give you minus 3. And then minus 1 times minus 2, it will give you plus 2. So now that we have obtained these two numbers, we will now write this expression as x squared. Then we will now write the two numbers that we obtained, which are minus 1x, that is minus 1 minus x, and minus 2x. Minus x minus 2, if you add these two, it will still give you this 3x. So that is why you just write it this way: x squared minus x minus 2x. Remember, minus x is the same thing as 1. It's the same thing as 1x. So if you add them, it will give you back your minus 3, then plus 2 is equal to 0. So from here now, you are going to separate this value, since you now have 4 terms. You have x squared minus x minus 2x and plus 2. You now have 4 times. Now you can just separate them. How do you separate them? This side will carry 2 times and the other side will carry 2 times. So that is the separation. You have already successfully separated this value. Now you now bring out the common factors in this expression. So the first side, after separating, you now observe the fourth side, which is x squared minus x. What is common between these terms? So the common terms there is x. If you bring out x, open your bracket, think about a number that if you multiply it with x, it will return back x squared, because you're factoring out now. So you think about a number that if you multiply it with x, it will give you x squared. So the number is the variable is x, because x times x will give you back that x squared. Then minus, think of a number that if you multiply it with x, it will give you back this x. So the number is 1, because x times 1 will give you back x. So you have factored out this, the first bracket. You now factor out the other bracket, where you have 2x plus 2. So the same thing, you think about a number that is common to the values in the bracket. So we have 2x plus 2. So the common value there is 2. 2 is common to the both terms inside. So you have, don't forget this negative sign here, minus. Bring out the common term, which is 2. Open a bracket. Think about a number that if you multiply it with 2, it will give you back 2x. Think about a number or a variable that if you multiply it with 2, it will return back 2x, and the value is x, because 2 times x will give you back that 2x. And you also think about a number that if you multiply it with 2, it will give you back this plus 2. Think about a number. So the number is 1, but now you have to take note of the sign. In the bracket we have plus 2, and we are thinking of a number that we can factor out, so that when we multiply it, it will give us back that plus 2. So the number is 1 though, but you have to take note of the sign, because here the 2 outside here is minus 2. The 2 outside here is minus 2. That means the number that is supposed to be inside is supposed to be minus 1. So because minus 2 times minus 1 will give you plus 2. Yes, minus 2 times minus 1 will give you plus 2. So you have to take note of the sign. It's very, very important. Because if you write it as plus 1, so it will not be a correct factor. Even when the number is correct, if you miss out the sign, it will affect the entire outcome. So now that you have factored out, your next step is to bring the number that is in bracket, take one of them, because we have two common numbers. The number that are inside the bracket are the same. We have x minus 1 and we also have x minus 1. So we are going to take 1. That's x minus 1. And then the number that is outside the bracket, we are also going to write it in the bracket. That's in our next step. Number that are outside the bracket, we have x and we also have minus 2. So this will be x minus 2 equal to 0. So this is the factorization. You have already factorized it, but you are not done with the calculation. What is your next step? Because they say solve. So the fact that they say solve, they mean that they want you to calculate for x. They want to know the value of x. So after factorizing now, you now calculate for x. And how do you calculate for x? So from this step now, you can see we have x minus 1 in bracket. We also have x minus 2 in bracket is equal to 0. So we are going to take each of them and set it equal to 0. That is, we will have x minus 1 is equal to 0, and we also have x minus 2 is also equal to 0. So we will now solve. Here x will be x minus 1 equal to 0. So if you transfer 1 to the other side, you have x is equal to 1. And then on the other side, you have x minus 2 is equal to 0. So if you transfer 2 to the other side, you have x will be equal to 2. So these are the solution. The solution to this equation is either x is equal to 1 or x will be equal to 2, and this is the solution. So you have gotten the value of x. X can be 1 or x can be 2 for the equation to be true. So that is the solution to that particular quadratic problem. So first, if you are solving by factorization, after factorizing, you now set each of these factors to be equal to 0, and then you solve for x from there. But let's take another example and see. So this is the next question. We are to solve 4x squared plus 12x plus 9 equal to 0. We have to solve this quadratic equation. And how do we go about solving it? Remember your first step. If you want to solve by factorization, remember we have different methods of solving quadratic equation. But if you want to solve by factorization, your first step is always multiply the coefficient of x squared with the constant. In this case, the coefficient of x squared is 4, and you multiply it with the constant, which will give you 4 times 9, and that is 36. So after multiplying it with the constant, you now set the equation again. 4x squared plus 12x, so plus 36 now. The reason why you're introducing to this 36 or you're multiplying the constant with the coefficient of x squared is because you want to get the two numbers that will add up to the number at the middle, and when you multiply it, it will give you a constant. That is the only reason why you're multiplying 9 with the coefficient of x squared, which is 4. So from here now, you think about two numbers that if you add them, it will give you 12x. That is the number at the middle. If you add them, it will give you the number at the middle, and if you multiply them, it will give you the constant. So this number are 6 and 6, because 6 plus 6 will give you 12, and then 6 times 6 will give you 36. So these are the two numbers that when you add them, it gives you the number at the middle, and when you multiply them, it gives you the constant, which is 36 now. So now we rewrite this expression as 4x squared plus the two numbers. Now you are writing the two numbers with the variable x, that is 6x plus 6x, then plus 9. This time around you write 9, not 36. You only use 36 to get the two middle numbers, to get the two middle number. So this is the same thing as your original question, 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. Because if you add 6x plus 6x, it will still give you 12x. It will give you back the 12x, and which will form your original equation. So you have to take note. So now that you have gotten the two numbers, you now separate the equation, because you now have four terms. So you have to separate the equation into two halves. So because you have four terms, you have 4x squared plus 6x plus 6x plus 9. These are terms, so you have four terms. So you separate them equally. So this will carry two terms, and then this will carry two terms. So after separating now, you now factor out what you separated. Look for the common factors. By looking for the common factor, you're looking for the common number or the least number that can go into these terms without a remainder. So if you look at our first bracket, which is this, what is the common factor there? If you look at it critically, we have 4x squared plus 6x. So 2 can go into 4, and then 2 can go into 6, meaning that 2 is a factor, and then both of them have x. So meaning that x is also a factor of this. X is also a factor. That means you have 2x. So now think of a number that if you multiply it with 2, it will give you back 4x squared. It will give you back this 4x squared when you multiply it with 2. Which number are you going to multiply it with 2 to give you back 4x squared? So the number is 2x. 2x times 2x will give you back 4x squared. Then plus, think of a number that you multiply it with 2 and it will give you back 6x. The number that you multiply it with 2x and it will give you back 6x. So the number is 3, because 2 times 3, 2x times 3 is 6x. So we have already factored out the first bracket. Then let's factor out the second bracket. The second bracket is 6x plus 9. So which number is common to the uh, two expression? So the common number is 3, because 3 can divide 6, and then 3 can equally divide 9. So the number is 3. We have plus 3, open bracket. How many times can 3 go into 6? Is 2 times. So we will have 2x here, because 3 times 2x will give you back 6x. Then how many times can 3 go into 9? Is 3 times, because 3 times 3 will give you 9, then equal to 0. So from here now, you now look at the two numbers in the bracket. They are common and they are the same. So you now take one in the bracket. You take 1. So we have 2x plus 3 is in the bracket, and then the one outside the bracket will also put it inside the bracket. So the one outside the bracket is also 2x plus 3, which is equal to 0. So we are done factorizing. Assuming that they ask you to factorize, at this point you stop. But if you're asked to solve, for meaning that they want to know the value of x, you will now take each of these factor and set it equal to 0. You take each of these factor and set it equal to 0. This will be this will now be 2x, the first factor now, plus 3 equal to 0, or the second factor now, 2x plus 3 also is equal to 0. You now solve for x on the both side. Let's solve for the first side now. We have 2x is equal to minus 3, because 3 going to the other side, the sign will change. So, and you are solving for x. So we have 2x, meaning that we are going to divide both sides by 2. So you divide here by 2 and divide here by 2. So 2 will cancel 2, and you'll be left with x equal to minus 3 over 2. That is the solution for this side. And the other side, we have 2x plus 3 equal to 0. So you transfer 3 to the other side also. You have 2x is equal to minus 3. So again, you divide both sides by 2 because you are solving for x. Then 2 will cancel 2 here. And then x will also be equal to minus 3 over 2. So this is the solution for this particular equation. So these are the two solutions. So that is how you solve quadratic equation using factorization. First, you factorize the given equation or expression. Then you now set the factors. After factorizing, you now set each of the factors to be equal to 0 and then solve for x. So I think we have come to the end of this particular session. If there is any question, you can drop it on the comment section, or you can reach out to me directly, and we'll get to resolve the question together. So thank you for joining and sparing your time to go through this. Just hope that it will be that enlightening. You have learned a lot from it. So thank you for, as always, for being here. Have a wonderful day.